Welcome everyone. I'm going to give a presentation today on Marine Alliance for Science and Technology at Queen's University Belfast, both from a Northern Ireland and a global perspective. Really, I would like to introduce Queen's in relation to MASTS and the work that we're doing there, the marine sector, and also some future prospects in terms of work and collaborations that may be of interest to some attending. So in relation to my talk, first of all, I want to start with a little bit about Queen's, or a wee bit about Queen's. Queen's has been around for 180 years. It's got architectural heritage. You can see the Lanyon building built and designed by Charles Lanyon. It's a member of the UK Russell Group. It's very research focused and currently ranked 26th in the UK in 2026. There's around 3,900 staff and up to 20,000 students across over 300 different academic programmes. In relation to Queen's, it has 3 faculties in terms of its research structure. We have medicine, health and life sciences, arts, humanities and social sciences, engineering and physical sciences. And you can see there's overlap between the faculties in terms of collaboration and research that does go on. I'm actually based within the School of Biological Sciences, which is in the Medicine, Health and Life Sciences faculty. And within that faculty, we have 4 schools. We have Biological Sciences, the School of Pharmacy, the School of Medicine, Dentistry and Biomedical Science, and the School of Nursing and Midwifery. It's just to give you a little bit about the structure of Queen's. And if I then talk a little bit about the School of Biological Sciences, it's known now to be in the top 200 in the world for the topic of biological sciences. It's first in the UK in REF for research in agricultural, food and veterinary science, Unit Assessment 6, and it's 15th in the UK for biological sciences. So it's first in REF, and 94% of the research is internationally world leading in terms of agricultural, food and veterinary sciences. And you might think, well, where does marine science fit here? Well, this is just a unit of assessment within REF. And a lot of the work that we do within the marine sciences also fits within this particular unit of assessment. A lot of our focus within the faculty and within the school is around One Health and looking at healthy environment for healthy animals and also for healthy people. And within our School of Biological Sciences, we have 3 themes. We have the Agri-Food Systems and Human Nutrition, for which I'm a theme lead. We have Understanding Health and Disease, and we have Biodiversity and Sustainability. And a lot of this presentation will be around the research that's being conducted in biodiversity and sustainability. And a lot of the research focus then, or one of the main drivers in the research focus, is around climate change. And climate change right across all 3 of our themes in terms of the effects and the impacts it's going to have in the coming years, decades and future. And of course, the marine environment is going to be very much impacted by climate change with the predictions that are currently being modelled. So just some more information about the School of Biological Sciences. So within Biological Sciences, we have the Institute for Global Food Security. And across this particular institute, we're connected to 3 regional city deals known as the Belfast City Deals. We've got AMAC, which is advanced manufacturing. We've got iReach Health, which is for clinical trials, and we've got Momentum 10, which is big data. And I'll talk about Momentum 10 later on. Also within IGFS and connected then within the school, we have the National Measurement Laboratory. We have the Chemoproteomics Centre of Excellence for Drug Discovery. We have the Centre of Excellence for Agri-Food Microbiomics. We have the Climate Co-Centre, which I'll talk a little bit more about. We have Sure Food I as a co-centre, and we have the Agri-Food Quest. So you can see it's a very diverse school for research and some of the work that goes on. But a lot of this research is really focused in around the marine environment. So where do we start with marine science then at Queen's? Well, we have a marine lab, and this marine lab has been around for a significant period of time. It's a listed building, and it's located in Portaferry, as you can see in the square in the box. And Portaferry just sits on the very edge of Strangford Lough, and Strangford Lough is one of the areas of most ecological and biodiverse within Northern Ireland. And it's an area of natural beauty and an area of natural conservation as well. So it very well sits in an ideal location for marine studies. And within that marine lab, we have a tidal wave centre. And of course, this particular gives opportunities for engineering aspects and for looking at other aspects of marine biology, as I will go through later in the presentation. So within Queen's University Marine Lab, it's very much a multidisciplinary research laboratory. It involves the School of Biological Sciences, the School of the Natural Built Environment, Mechanical Aerospace and Engineering, and also the School of Chemistry in terms of the research work that's conducted there. In terms of the key staff in marine science in the School of Biological Sciences, we have Professor Jamie Dick, who's actually the director of the Marine Lab, and a lot of his research focuses on invasion ecology and invasive species coming into Northern Ireland and across the globe. Dr. Patrick Collins then is a senior lecturer in marine biology. Dr. John Houghton is also a reader in marine biology, and we have Dr. Sarah Hellier as a senior lecturer in as a professor in food security and diagnostics, particularly in the area of aquaculture. We have also got Professor Paolo Prodal, who looks at population and evolutionary genetics, and we have Professor Gary Hardiman, who looks at systems biology, and particularly effects of the environment in terms of microplastics and micropollutants. We have got Dr. Ross Cuthbert, who's also a lecturer of invasive species and looks at invasion ecology, and Dr. Annika Clements as a lecturer in marine biology. We have Professor Mark Emerson, who is a co-director of the Co-Centre for Climate Change, Biodiversity and Water, and he is a professor of biodiversity. And then we also have a business manager, Mr. Stefan Durand, and he gets involved with what are known as European Innovation Technology platform within Queen's. And these are large initiatives then funded by Europe, and I'll talk a little bit more about those as well as I go through the presentation. In terms of some of the additional staff then within the Marine Lab, we have Dr. Carwyn Frost as a lecturer in civil engineering, Dr. Pal Schmidt as a senior lecturer in environmental change and resilience. We've got Dr. Pamela Walsh from mechanical engineering, who's a senior lecturer, and a lot of her research would focus around marine materials and marine materials for the biotech sector, for medical applications, pharmaceutical applications, and biomedical applications. And then we have Dr. Andrew Marr, who's a reader in green, sustainable and environmental chemistry. So what is marine science and technology? Well, at Queen's, we cover everything from molecular processes to international law. And this is just like a word map of a lot of the areas that we cover. Some of the main areas are around conservation, around fisheries, around food security, around policy, ecology, microbiology, population genetics, looking at deep sea mining, looking at chemical pollution, looking at spatial ecology, biogeochemistry, food authenticity, chemical safety, contaminant monitoring, looking at environmental management, ecosystem health, right through to aquaculture, looking at carbon sinks, marine toxins, marine vertebrates. So it's quite a diverse area of research that goes on within Queen's. And what I'm going to do is talk about some of those research areas in a little bit more detail, just to give you a little bit of a flavour of some of the research and some of the projects that have been conducted. The first image shows our School of Biological Science inside a new state-of-the-art building that was built in around 2019 or completed in 2019 for the biological sciences, because the agri-food and the aquaculture industry is so important then to Northern Ireland. We also then focus on genetics, we focus on molecular biology, we focus on invasive species, we focus on shipping, and shipping routes and the effects of shipping on the ecosystem. We look at satellite monitoring and imaging. We also look at drones and deployables in the marine environment. And this is where our marine tank or our wave tank in the marine lab comes into a very good practice for testing some of these devices. And of course, we look at the seafood industry in terms of what we can do there in research, both from the protection of chemicals, toxins and pathogens, but also in food authenticity and traceability as well. So if we start with a high-level picture of marine science and technology at QUB, we look at genetics from population size and connectivity, biochemistry, in terms of dietary composition. And with biochemistry, we also look at chemical composition and toxicology as well in relation to some of the marine toxins that would be formed from HABs and some of the pollutants or agrochemicals that might end up in the marine environment, including pesticides, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, PFAS and PFOS, which are very much in the fore at the moment in terms of regulation purposes. We also look at phycology, looking at ocean productivity, physiology, looking at energetics and climate change. We look at social science from stakeholder engagement, meteorology, we're drivers of ocean production, oceanography, productivity and circulation. We look at statistical modelling and high performance computing. We also look at satellite tracking and migration and residence, data loggers and sensors, behaviour and energetics. So you can see it's quite a diverse picture of the research that is conducted at Queen's in relation to some of the different disciplines that are ongoing. So marine biology within the School of Biological Sciences, it has some key thematic areas with collaborative potential. We have got drivers of biodiversity for change. We've got supporting the blue growth economy. We have food from the oceans. We have technology and innovation, and we have education and skills. And as climate change is actually one of our biggest drivers in terms of the research that we're doing right across the Institute for Global Food Security and the School of Biological Sciences, you can see where climate change and the effects of changes in climate would actually affect these particular thematic areas. For the drivers of biodiversity and change, we've got marine protected areas, 30% by 2030. We have got expansive territorial waters of Ireland, left and right, which bring opportunities and challenges. And for the drivers of biodiversity change and climate action, we have Portaferry Marine Lab. We look at carbon and carbon restoration and carbon sequestration. We've got restoration ecology. We've got behavioural studies looking at mesocosms for natural climates and effects in those natural climates for different parameters, including climate parameters. And a lot of this work would be done down at Marine Lab and Portaferry. As well as having the Marine Lab, we also have the Coast Centre and the Coast Centre for Climate, Biodiversity and Water. And we also have an all-island climate and biodiversity research network. And of course, within this network, we're looking at the different UN sustainability goals, whether it be zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, affordable and clean energy, industry, innovation and infrastructure, life below water, climate action and partnerships for the goals. And you can see then the partnerships that we get involved with are both from industry, society, the government and different academic and institute organisations, looking at technology-based solutions, engineering-based solutions, nature-based solutions and societal-based solutions for protecting the marine environment. And the areas we look at are climate science, mitigation, just transition, adaptation, and biodiversity. If we look at supporting the blue growth economy, I'm just going to give us some examples of some projects that we've been involved in or are currently involved in. For the blue economy, we're involved in a project called Trident. It has numerous partners. It's a £16 million project, Euro Prime project, to develop technology-based impact assessment tools for sustainable, transparent deep sea mining exploration and exploitation. So it's looking for, what can we look and investigate in relation to deep sea mining. And you can see then the partners that are involved: Marine Institute, the University College Cork, the National Oceanographic Centre, Inistech, and EU EPC. If we look at supporting the blue growth economy, we also have a spin-out company within the university called Forge Strong. This company is led up by Dr. Patrick Collins and Dr. John Houghton. And Forge Strong is a spin-out looking at rapid, low-impact biodiversity surveys. And, just as a pun on the title, the spin-out is going strong and conducting a number of surveys across Ireland and further beyond. Also, on supporting the blue growth economy, we've looking at aquaculture security, being able to develop different types of methods of analysis for monitoring chemicals, toxins, and pathogens that might be in the seafood supply chain, understanding and mitigating against harmful algal blooms that produce diverse marine biotoxins, and then understanding climate change relationships in the production of these particular harmful algal blooms. Some European projects we have been involved in are Seafood Tomorrow, creating nutritious, safe and sustainable seafood for consumers of tomorrow, a large European project with 34 partners. And we've also been involved in different projects through EIT food funding. And one of my own PhD students has been looking at the effects of different chemicals, toxins and pathogens around the coast of Northern Ireland in relation to shellfish monitoring. And she's also very artistic and was able to make the front cover of Reviews in Aquaculture in relation to her review article that she conducted. I just want to mention EIT Food, and I'll come back to the EIT programmes later on. Within EIT Food, it's teams on the ground across Europe that unlock innovation potential in businesses and higher education and create and scale agri-food startups to bring new technologies and products to market. Now, although it says agri-food, a lot of the research that has been done is more around aquafood and seafood. And EIT Food is structured around 3 European regions with similar food system and market challenges, and it's managed by 6 regional offices. And you can see there's a Western region, a Northeastern region, and a Southern region. And within these regions, they have co-location centres as a hub for the partners from those particular regions. Within EIT Food now, there's greater than 500 partners right across Europe looking at innovation in the agri-food supply chain. And the purpose of EIT Food was to put the value back into the food supply chain. So this is some of the community within the EIT Food platform in terms of core partners. There would be industry partners, there would be higher education partners and research centres and non-profit organisations. And of course, EIT Food is co-funded by the European Union. It's funded by the European Institute of Technology. And it was a 7 to 10-year programme looking at putting that value back into food. Moving on to the next theme, we have food from the oceans, fish and population genetics at Queen's. A lot of work done in evolutionary genetics as well. And there's over 30 major projects over the past 3 decades. Some of the examples include wild farm interactions in a changing world, high throughput SNP analysis for the marine environment, fisheries knowledge for sustainable management, looking at taxonomy, and looking at seascape genetics of scallop populations, and again, quite a diverse range of funders and partners within population genetics. There's also new technology and innovation, particularly applications in the field-based genomics, and looking at developing rapid methods that can be developed and used on site. And of course, looking at biodiversity assessments, gut content analysis, looking at identification of key species for monitoring, and identification of spawning events. And a lot of work and a lot of surveys being done on eDNA, as well as looking for natural chemicals, toxins and pollutants. For technology and innovation, there's EU projects looking at the effects of ecotourism, particularly around the Galapagos Islands. And this is really from a broad scope of fundamental research to translational research, and quite a diverse project around Galapagos. There's also looking at vessel automatic identification systems, drone surveys in relation to the turtle density, the satellite tracking data that's there. There's biologging and video footage for the turtles, biologging behaviour and energy, biologging of the hydrophone, all this data being collected together as part of this project. And of course, the collision risk modelling under varied scenarios. There's stakeholder engagement and policy recommendations. And of course, then there's implementation thereafter as the impact. So it's quite a broad scope project to look at the effects of ecotourism around some of these protected areas across the world. Within technology and innovation, the School of Biological Sciences is well placed for major EU consortia programmes. We've been involved in Sea Monitor, which was a £4.6 million project to conserve migratory species in the northeastern Atlantic area. And we were also involved in another project called Mosaic, which is an £8.4 million or euro project looking at integrated oceanographic sensors, elasmobranchs, turtles and climate. And again, quite a diverse project from fundamental research to translational research. In terms of education and skills, there's taking stock of shared interest. There's valuable undergraduate content and marine topics delivered in schools. And of course, we're now part of the MASTS for Scotland association as well. So we're part of the Marine Alliance for Science and Technology for Scotland as part of that initiative. Within education and skills, we have existing collaboration across schools. We had the Quadrat doctoral training programme, which is now the Quartiles Landscapes Partnerships. And these doctoral training programmes are very much focused on looking at the environment and environmental research, basically funded by NERC. Now, on that note, what I would like to talk about is some of those partnerships we have across faculties. The Marine Lab, as I mentioned, has, a number of faculties and schools involved, particularly engineering and physical sciences as a faculty. And then some of the research in the School of Natural and Built Environment looks more towards the law and enforcement. Some of the academic staff there would be Professor Grant Ellis, who's a professor in environmental planning, Professor Wesley Flannery, who's a professor in marine planning, Professor Brendan Murtock, who's a professor in urban planning, and Dr. Heather Ritchie, who's a lecturer in planning. And some of the researchers and PhD students that are involved in the research there as well. In relation to the research themes, they're looking at marine policy, marine protection, transboundary governance, community empowerment, stakeholder engagement, cultural heritage and citizen science. Some of the projects they've been involved in are PermaGov, which sets out to improve EU marine governance so that it can better meet the goals and objectives established in the European Green Deal. Different partners from across Europe, and the theme is really around the EU Green Deal implementation. For COCOMAR, it focuses on the evolving marine governance frameworks that apply around the island of Ireland. The funder is the Marine Institute. You've also got partners with University College Cork, Marine Institute. The theme was co-location and coexistence, and the QUB staff involved in that particular project as well. For TRACK, it's looking at transformative research actions for resilient coastal communities. And again, this is UKRI funded, and it's very much focused on that coastal resilience governance. For Marine Plan, It's looking at improved transdisciplinary science for effective ecosystem-based maritime spatial planning and conservation in European seas. And again, the funder is through Horizon Europe and UKRI, and the theme is very much around marine protection. For Empower Us, it's a social economic empowerment of coastal communities as users of the sea to ensure sustainable coastal development, again funded by the European Union and UKRI. And again, looking at the theme of social economic empowerment of coastal communities. So within the natural built environment, they have a marine social science research group. They have a research group focused on developing connections and links in the field of marine social science. Members from within QUB, Planning, Biological Sciences, Centre for Creative Ethnography, as well as outside academia, the Royal Society for Protection of Birds, National Trust, Fair Seas, and we are currently developing a perspective paper exploring the gaps and opportunities for marine protection on the island of Ireland. Recently, a member co-delivered a workshop at the MASTS annual student retreat in Aviemore, and a member of the research group in mentoring a MASTS super doctoral training programme student. What I would like to go back to now is just to give a little bit more information on the knowledge information communities, or the KICs as they're known across Europe. So the European Institute of Technology started up these knowledge information communities in 2010. The first one was an EIT climate KIC, and it was to accelerate the transition to a zero carbon economy. And since 2010, right through to 2022, there have been 9 different KICs in that time frame. And of course, EIT Food being one of those, leading a global revolution in food innovation and production. So from climate to digital, to InnoEnergy, to health, to raw materials, to food, to manufacturing, mobility, culture and creativity. In 2026, we now have EIT Water. And the EIT Water is to contribute to a circular and sustainable water economy. And that includes marine management as well. So just to give you a little bit of information on this new EIT Water. So within EIT Water, through collaboration, amplifying regional excellence to overcome fragmentation and the water marine management sectors. Together, we will secure a smart, resilient, competitive water future for Europe. Now, this particular programme also is the same structure across Europe. There are a number of co-location centres, and the University of Leeds will lead the co-location centre for UK and Ireland. But Queen's University is a partner within EIT Water as well. So some of the opportunities within EIT Water is to look at our unique strengths to deliver on Europe's water goals. And some of those goals are overcoming fragmentation, where the water landscape as a whole, sea, source to sea, is being designed for collaboration and impact, looking at deep regional integration, placing co-location centres with access and demonstrated excellence in a new water village, independent leadership across the different water sectors, and of course looking at the finances and financial sustainability and public funding in relation to developing these particular KICs. Now these particular KICs are funded. They usually work across 4 pillars, and the 4 pillars tend to be research and innovation, business development, communication and education. And of course, EIT Water is experienced and diverse with a management group and an interdisciplinary management team that will ensure success. And you can see the management team is already in place as of 2026. So this particular EIT Water has only commenced, and different partners are becoming involved within the programme, but it is one to watch out for. Now, when I talk about big data and Belfast regional city deals, one that really applies to the marine environment is the Belfast Regional City Deal Momentum 1.0 Centre. And this is really growing the digital innovation ecosystem for Northern Ireland. And within this system, it's basically bringing large sets of data together to give real world impact and to give meaning to that data, and integrating data for modelling, looking at satellite imagery in relation to climate change and in relation to other parameters that may be important in understanding the whole picture as opposed to just elements of the picture. So Momentum 10 is a digital technology and data innovation centre in Queens. It's exploiting advanced technology and cybersecurity, wireless connectivity, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and scalable computing. And it's also translating it into solutions which address the problems faced by industry in key growth sectors, including the life and health sciences and agri-food and aquaculture sectors. Now, the research in deep technological domains for secure connected intelligence, there's multidisciplinary innovation in key themes, co-designed with companies and stakeholders, and there's also translation and innovation specialism for commercial and engineering teams. So this is one to perhaps keep in mind, particularly if you're doing wireless and connectivity and looking at artificial intelligence and scalable computing for any of the marine data that you might be collecting. So just to summarise, marine biology, looking from molecular processes to international law, right through at Queen's. There's a diversity of skills in the School of Biological Sciences with adaptive capacity. We dovetail well with QUB Marine Diaspora, the policy facing research to meet needs of Northern Ireland and beyond. We have core thematic areas showcased, but far from exclusive. There's other research going on, and I'm happy to discuss elements of that as well. There's definitely scope for collaboration and expansion, particularly in the areas of education, and look forward and welcome to new collaborations. And I would just like to offer the opportunity to take any questions and to thank you for listening and coming along to the talk.